welcome to the Recovery Daily podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abbasi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. And today I want to talk to you about a topic that is very important for our mental health and can actually heavily impact our recovery and exacerbate symptoms if we don't handle it well. So what I want to talk about is how we respond to anger. And when I was drinking, I definitely had no idea how to handle anger. It was just something that was like it happened to me, almost like anxiety. Like I felt like these emotions, these intense emotions, were things that happened to me, and there was nothing I could do about it. And through sobriety, I have learned that all of these emotions that I feel, number one, when I'm not drinking, they aren't as extreme. It doesn't mean that I don't feel them as deeply. It's my reaction to them isn't as chaotic. So specifically, anger can completely derail us if we don't manage it properly. Um, it can make us just completely forget our purpose and lead us into actions and decisions that we will later regret. So I wanted to explore how we can try to avoid getting angry in the first place. And if it's too late and you're already angry, the anger is seeping into your being, how to respond to it in a healthy way, even when it feels impossible to do anything but scream at or punch something. So I realize there are some people who have extreme anger management issues, and as always, I have this, like, I have to say, some people need professional help to deal with these types of situations. So I wanted to just share with you what I do. And I happen to be somebody that likes to avoid conflict. And I think that I always have. What I'm thinking of is like when I was drinking, I definitely have always wanted to avoid conflict. Like I didn't go in the direction of conflict ever. But if I got angry when I was in my years of drinking, I would just what I call pop my top. Okay. So I wanted to share a couple experiences that I had. Um, One when I was drinking and two when I was sober, meaning one when I was still an active alcoholic and two of them I was no longer drinking anymore. I was sober. So, and all of them really caused the same reaction in my body. So, what that means is just because I'm sober doesn't mean I don't get pissed off, you know? Um, and all of these suggestions that I have in this episode, I realize that we are human. And I realize that in the heat of the moment, it is very difficult to do anything other than what your body and your mind just want to react a certain way, So, but it's anything like this that our bodies kind of take on a mind of their own when we get angry or anxious or any extreme emotion like that. If we can identify what it is that would be a healthier way of handling that emotion, and then we practice it every time we feel the emotion, we try to practice it, it can become a habit. It really can. I am a living proof that it can become a habit, but it takes a lot of work. It takes, you have to be committed to wanting to do this better, do it differently, be a different, um, not a different person, but be a different, I don't know, just react differently, I guess, to what's going on inside of you. It doesn't have to own you. So, okay, here's the first example I have. When I was still an active alcoholic, I was married to my first husband, the kid's dad. And, when I was drinking, I felt like, oh, I did everything. I was raising the kids. I had a full-time job. I cleaned the house. I did do a lot. I'm not negating that I did a lot. I'm just saying that I, in an unreasonable way, did never, I had the option to take a break for myself, to take care of myself. I didn't have to push myself to the extreme that I got to sit down in front of the TV once a week to watch one show. This is what I was claiming. And the show was American Idol. And this was like the first year that it was on. And so I'm like, this is the one show I get to sit and watch. So I want everybody to leave me alone and be quiet, right? So I'm already setting myself up for failure because I am expecting something that is unreasonable to happen. I have two small children, right? It's not fair. I mean, some of you would say, hell yeah, it's fair, tell them to leave you alone. But it's inevitable there's going to be one of the times when I'm sitting there and something's going on and everybody's coming, mom, 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 mom. Well, okay, so this night that I'm thinking of, I was watching American Idol and the two kids and the dad like came in. I have no idea what was happening. I can't remember if people were arguing or they needed me. I have no idea. I was drinking. I do know that. I had my wine in my hand. And they all came in and were trying to talk to me. And I was trying to hear this show. And I turned around and just screamed. I feel like my head turned around on my neck. Like my voice got the deepest octave that it can possibly get. And I just exploded on them and said that I get one chance a week to sit down and do something that I want to do. And I just want to be left alone or something like that. I can't remember specifically what I said. I just know that I lost it on them. And it didn't feel good. It didn't feel good to the point that I still remember it, and that was 20 years ago. So another example is when I was sober, I was working and I was interacting with somebody at work over and over and over again for years. And I had been talking to my boss about how this professional relationship was not working. And it was his job to do something about it. And nothing was being done about it. And so eventually I went into his office and I shut the door and I just exploded. I exploded to the point that I believe the executive in the office next door probably heard me. He had to have. I mean, I lost my shit. And what happens in a situation like that when I'm in, when I'm with a person that I don't know, feel intimidated by or have some sort of respect for or something like that. At a time when I want to feel um, confident, then what do? I cry. So I go in there and I'm mad. So I just start crying. I mean, I must have looked like a crazy woman in the office. Well, later, I think the following week, he let me talk and everything and or yell, whatever. And he talked me down from the ledge. And then the following week, I think we were talking and I said, he was like, next time you need to vent, he said it very gently. Next time you need to vent, how about you just say, hey, why don't we go out for some coffee? I really need to talk to you or something like that. But I couldn't think straight. I was so angry. I couldn't make a decision that would be a healthier way of expressing myself in a healthier environment. Just like when I wanted to watch American Idol. Okay, finally, this is the last time I remember getting really angry. I feel like there might have been another time. The only thing I can think of is I've been really angry about some medical stuff, but this one stands out in my head that's not medically oriented. I was walking my dog, Autumn, the Weimaraner, and this is before I had professional trainers come and help me train her. I was walking her, and she had a tendency when we would walk by certain dogs, I never knew which dog it was going to be, but we would walk by certain dogs, and she would just jump at them. Like she would sound like she was going to kill the other dog. Kind of like I do when I lose my temper, right? Like I did in my boss's office, like I did when I wanted to watch American Idol. So my dog would do this depending on what dog we were passing, walking by. So we were walking by a lady who was jogging with her German Shepherd. And my dog doesn't like German Shepherds. And I think it's because she was in a cage with a German Shepherd when I got her. That's what I think, a puppy German Shepherd. I'm not quite sure, but I'm 95% sure. Anyway, my dog like lunged at her dog. Didn't, she was on the leash, so nothing happened. But that lady turned to me and said, you need to get control of your dog. You need to teach your dog how to heel. That's what she did. But she said it really nasty. And then she just kept jogging. And I was like, no, she did not say that to me because she was right. And I didn't like that. Her dog was trained and could go jogging with her. My dog was out of control. She was absolutely right. I needed to teach my dog how to heel. But my reaction was, if that lady comes back here, I am going to unload on her. So what happened is I stopped in my tracks. I was so angry. I was livid that she had the audacity to tell me anything about what I need to do with my dog. Like, I didn't touch you. We didn't touch you, you know? It probably scared the shit out of her. That's why she did it. And that was her reaction. But I just stopped in my tracks with the dog, with my dog. And I turned around and I looked at her, and there was probably smoke coming out of my ears. And I just stood there and I was like, I was thinking, turn around, just turn around, lady. Because I was standing there puffing up, ready for her to come back and we were gonna have it out. And she, right before she got out of sight, she turned around and looked at me. And I kind of puffed up even more. I don't know what I thought I was going to do. I mean, I have never had any sort of altercation like this in my life, but I was so angry. So I ended up walking my dog. She went off. I've never seen that lady since then. But she I went on to walk about 2 miles with my dog. This is back when I used to walk. I may have been walking 4 miles at the time. But anyway, I walked a couple miles with my dog. And the entire time I was walking, I started out, I cried because, again, I cry when I'm angry. And which makes me just be angry at myself that I'm such a wimp. You know, that's what it feels like. And then I was thinking, if I see her again, I'm gonna say this or this or this. This, I should have said this, and you know how that is. And by the end of my 2 miles that I was walking, I realized my sobriety program started seeping back into my head because I wasn't able to think clearly when I was angry. But as I started to calm down, um, I realized she's right. I'm, what I learned in my sobriety program if is if I have a problem with somebody else, there's something wrong with me. And that's what I finally realized. I turned the camera around and looked at myself and thought, I'm angry because she's right. I do need to have better control of my dog. I do need to teach my dog how to heel. And I went home and I wasn't done being angry by any means, but that's cool that we get to feel complex emotions as human beings. So I can feel angry and feel inspired and feel embarrassed all at the same time. I went home and I shared this with my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, and I cried to him because it's humiliating. That's what I felt like. Eventually, we hired these trainers to come, and my dog heals now. My dog heals now. And so I took action. So these are my 3 examples. When I get angry, my body feels like it reacts before my brain even tells me that I'm angry. Like it is so fast. I feel like I don't have time to stop my body from reacting. Um, I imagine that people that have more severe physical reactions to anger need that professional help, anger management. My reaction is that I shake, I cry, and I find it really difficult to speak. Like, I don't think I even said a word to that lady. Um, I wanted to, but I couldn't get anything out of my mouth. It's easier for me if I get angry when I'm like talking to somebody. It's easier for me to quote unquote win an argument if I'm able to remain calm. And this is terrible to admit, but if I'm in an argument and I see that the other person has escalated in anger, I know immediately that they are going to have more trouble expressing themselves than me. And when I see this, I start doing the opposite and I start calming down. And more often than not, I end up walking away from that conversation feeling like I won, let's say, at whatever that may mean, depending on the argument or whatever. There was one instance where I was with same boss. Um, him and I it was a one-on-one meeting I was having with him. And I don't remember what we were talking about, but we didn't see eye to eye on something. Oh, I remember exactly what we were talking about. We didn't see eye to eye on something. And I still disagree to this day, but that's beside the point. So he was not going to stop until he convinced me of what he was trying to convince me of. And I was like, not going to be convinced. And I'm still not to this day. But we were escalating, both of us. We were climbing a ladder together of anger. And at this one point, he just shut his mouth and he stopped talking. And I think he looked down. He was pausing. Like he was so brave. It was inspiring to watch him do this. After the fact. At the time, I was just like, damn it, he's gonna win. That's what I was thinking because he was able to calm down before me. So he he calmed down and then he started talking to me in this like overly kind, calm manner, which you know what that does, right? It pisses you off even more. And but he was able to de-escalate the situation. And although I never did agree with him, we were able to get to a point where, he was my boss. I had to do what he told me to do at the end of the day, unless it was ethically wrong or something, I had to, follow what he was asking me to do. And it was really all about the way that he was asking me to do it. And that's just, we worked well together. I can imagine that if I had a different boss who didn't allow me to talk so honestly like that, I wouldn't have walked in there and gone off the way that I did. It was just because we developed that kind of relationship. So it's not like I would have walked into anybody's office and lose my mind or anything like that. It was just the kind of brother sister kind of relationship that we had as a boss employee. Anyway, so when I'm angry, I if I'm not able to de-escalate myself, I will make hasty remarks and decisions that I'll regret later. It's like my ability to think gets completely hijacked by my emotion. And this is why it's important for me to take action before I get angry, before the anger fully takes over my being, my body. And sometimes pausing, like my boss did, is the action that is needed. Um, so the first step in managing anger, I think, is in recognizing those early signs. And this might include, for me, it's physical sensations like my heart starts racing or my muscles start getting tense. Because the reason why I'm shaking is because my muscles are getting tense and my heart is racing. Um, I also get this feeling of heat rising. I can feel my face getting red. And these are the subtle sensations that I feel before I actually start shaking or before I start crying. And um, by noticing these early signs, we can take steps to calm ourselves before it really truly develops into anger or escalates into that lack of control when our body doesn't listen to what we're trying to tell it to do. It takes on that mind of its own. So when you feel a lack of control or you have intense physical symptoms when you're angry, there are all kinds of chemicals and parts of your brain involved. And I was looking it up, all the parts of your body that have to do with this fight or flight trigger. So I was just going to share with you what I learned. So the amygdala is the part that processes emotions and including anger. And it helps to recognize threats and triggers the body into the fight or flight response. And that is what can lead to physical symptoms like your heart rate and muscle tension and then shaking. The hypothalamus is responsible for your heart rate, your blood pressure. So when the amygdala signals a threat, the hypothalamus activates the autonomic nervous system. Sorry, I'm doing the best I can. And that leads to those physical manifestations of anger. And then you have the prefrontal cortex, and that is involved in regulating your emotions and impulse control. So when you're angry, the prefrontal cortex may be less active, reducing your ability to control your emotional and physical reactions. That's what makes me go into my boss's office and lose my mind, or make me stop in my tracks and wait for some lady to turn around so that I can lose my mind on her. The brain stem controls the basic bodily functions, including physical responses to stress and anger. So the brain stem works really closely with the hypothalamus to implement the fight or flight response. And then finally, and I'm sure this is not the end of the list, but this is the end of what I have, is adrenal glands, which are not a part of the brain, but the adrenal glands, sorry, play a significant role in the physical symptoms of anger by releasing the adrenaline and cortisol, by which prepare the body for rapid response to perceived threats. And that's what's happening when I was standing there waiting for that lady to turn around with her German Shepherd. I had so much adrenaline. I think that's why we start shaking, right? Is that release of adrenaline. So when these areas of the brain and the body interact, they create the physical sensations and lack of control that is experienced by a lot of us when we are feeling intense anger. So I wanted to talk about what can we do to try to calm down when we've got all of these parts of the body that are, it's really in our survival. That's what's happening is our body goes into this survival mode. And so what can we do to tell our body, you don't need to save me? Like everything is okay. So, one way to convince your body of that is to do the breathing. Breathing helps me. I've talked about breathing with anxiety. It is a really effective way of calming your mind and your body. So, when you feel angry, when you feel it building up, when you and we know that we're starting to feel angry, whether we want to admit it or not, that's another thing, you know. So if you can really practice being mindful and know that, you know, I'm not feeling good about what this person is saying to me. Sometimes it's quickly, sometimes it's slowly. With the lady, it was quick. Um, and but I have a resolution for that as well. But when you feel this anger building up, take a few slow breaths, like pause. Pause is such a lifesaver for so many emotions that I feel in sobriety. Um, I like to I'm usually a one breath kind of person, like take one slow, deep breath, count to four, hold it for four, and then exhale for eight. And this technique can actually lower your heart rate. And I have had that happen. Um, Not with one breath, several, but I'm usually just a one breath kind of person. Um, but if you actually give yourself some space to do it, you are gonna be able to lower your heart rate, and it additionally gives you a moment to pause and to think. And this pause could be the difference between you saying or doing something that you regret. And sometimes the best way to pause is to step away. This is what I call a long distance pause. So give yourself some time to walk away. And this can help you to gain perspective and prevent you from saying or doing something you'll regret. Um, I do think that there is a good way to remove yourself and a bad way to remove yourself. And sometimes, if we are so desperate to remove ourselves as quickly as possible before we pop our top, we can end up removing ourselves in a way that is abrupt and rude. Um, if that saves you from doing something worse, fine. remove yourself in a rude way. It doesn't matter. But there is a way with practice to remove yourself by saying, I need to remove myself from this situation and leave. That's it. By just communicating that, you don't even have to have any feeling. You don't have to yell it. You don't have to anything. It's what you're doing is putting up, for me, this is how I explain it. You're putting up the wall. What is that like in Star Trek where they put up the shields? Yeah, that's what it is. Oh, that's funny that I'm using Star Trek references. But you're putting up the shields and you're announcing that you're putting up the shields and you're going to another dimension. And that is a good way of protecting the people around you and preventing you, again, from saying or doing something that you regret. So that's the long distance pause. And mindfulness. Now, this, when I was thinking about this, I'm like, this is impossible. It's not impossible to be mindful at a time when you're totally pissed off. So when you feel your anger rising, try to notice what your body is doing. Okay. Notice that you're angry in your body rather than noticing that you're angry in your mind. So stay with me. When you feel anger starting up here in your mind, switch your focus to your body. Look at your breathing, feel your breathing, feel your heart beating faster, feel the heat in your face getting hotter. Feel the dizziness if you're somebody who gets dizzy when you get angry. That happens to me even before my stroke. I would get dizzy when I got angry. Feel the lump in your throat if you're somebody who cries when you get angry. Feel the sensations in your hands, like if they're getting ready to shake or not. And this refocus from up here in your mind down to the sensations in your body can help ground you and reduce the intensity of your anger. It's really because you're changing your focus. The reason why it's easier than it sounds, when you say practice mindfulness when you're angry, I think you'd probably punch the person in the face that says that. Well, the reason why it's easier than it sounds is because it is self-centered. This strategy is self-centered, which is a natural emotion when you are angry, self-centered, right? Because anger itself is self-centered in a lot of ways. When it's caused by people, places, or things that are not meeting our desires. Anger is protecting our own interests. So it's easier to change our focus inward than it is to change our focus outward. For example, if I'm getting angry, it's easier for me to think about my heartbeat, my breathing, those sensations in my body, than it is for me to change from up here in my mind to picturing myself in a happy place or a beach or somebody that I love. Or, it takes more work, more imagination to switch the focus from our mind to something outside of ourselves. but it's easier to be angry and be trapped up in your head and shift that focus down to below your neck and feel what's going on in your body. And just that focus is a grounding technique. And the picturing yourself in a happy place or something like that, that works for some people. I do use that sometimes for anxiety. But I find with anger, I can just explore the sensations in my body at the time that I'm angry, and it allows me to pause. So give it a shot. It's worth it. It's worth a try if it's something that makes sense to you. Um, there was one time that before I quit drinking that I had a doctor's appointment. And when I went in there, I hadn't fully admitted that I was even an alcoholic. I don't even know if I knew I was an alcoholic at that point. I just had severe anxiety issues. That's what I thought. Um, and I went in there and they took my blood pressure, and she was extremely concerned. There were multiple doctors that came into the room, and she said that you need to picture yourself in a happy place. And I laughed, and she was like, I'm not kidding. You need to picture yourself in a happy place. And she like gave me something to think about. And I was like, okay. And so she left the room for about 5 minutes. It felt like 5 hours. And then she came back in, and I think my panic attack had subsided. But it's really, from that point on, it's been like an effective way for me to handle my anxiety. Also breathing. So when we're angry, that inner dialogue can become very negative. Um, Practice telling yourself that it's okay to be angry. Sometimes just giving yourself permission to be angry and let it run its course is all you need to do. Like, acknowledging that anger is a part of being human. It's kind of like anxiety attacks, like those panic attacks. I have learned over the years that when I start feeling a panic attack, I know now that it's not something that's going to kill me. This is something that is, I'm reacting to something that I'm worried about. And by giving myself permission to feel that uncomfortable feeling and know that it's not gonna kill me, I it it runs its course, which is about 20 seconds. And then all of my sensations in my body will start subsiding and going back to normal again. And I believe that anger can do the same thing. So my favorite thing to do when I'm angry is push-ups. I used to like to run. That I that fueled a lot of my running um, when I got sober. Since I can't do that now because of my disability, push-ups is the best way for me to release that energy. Moving your body can dissipate the physical energy of anger and help to clear your mind, at least settle your mind. And this works for me. Usually, the push-ups, usually in combination with something else. So I can't just do push-ups and I'm fine. The push-ups is getting rid of the energy. The push-ups is like when you pull a rubber band and you've got all that tension. The push-ups is allowing me to subside that tension. But there's still energy that I need to put into something. And that's where things like the God box come in. Put the energy the whatever it is that I'm bothered by in the God box, or call my sponsor or a friend. And then also focusing on the sensations in my body. What really helps that I like is doing my push-ups and then feeling my heart beating faster because of the push-ups. It's almost like when I get angry, my heart starts beating faster. If I do push-ups, then that is, how can I say this? Like matching the level of heart rate that I should have. So the push-up heart rate, I don't know if this is coming across right, but the push-up heart rate, the heart rate that I would have from doing push-ups is the same as the heart rate I have when I get angry. So if I do the push-ups, then I match that heart rate, it feels better for me. I'm maybe disguising that sensation as energy from the push-up instead of anger. I hope that makes sense. Another way is gratitude. Gratitude is always an effective antidote to negative emotions, even anger. Personally, doesn't work for me. When I'm angry, gratitude's not going to get me out of it. But if it's something that you want to try, you can shift your focus to something that you're grateful for. It doesn't mean that you're ignoring what you're angry at, but again, we're complex. We can feel lots of different emotions at the same time. Um, when you're ready to address the situation that made you angry, this is something I like to talk to my kids about. And that is to use I statements to communicate effectively. Using I statements without blaming others, for example, saying, I feel upset when, instead of saying, you make me angry when, this approach will reduce defensiveness of the other person, and it really promotes constructive dialogue. I've always tried to talk to my kids about that. I'm all about avoiding conflict, which isn't good sometimes. But in this case, using I statements really comes across so much better than you. So I, when my daughter would get upset or need to confront somebody about something, I would always end our conversation with, okay, remember, I, not you. That's what I always say. So it really helps, I think, in having calm communication and not escalating anything. So by recognizing these early signs that you're getting ready to pop your top, practice breathing, pausing, long distance pausing, using mindfulness, settling your self-talk, burning the energy with some sort of physical activity, practicing gratitude if that works for you, and communicating in I, and not you. And these strategies can seem impossible, but like everything else, just practice it. And again, I am living proof that you can be totally pissed off and divert your attention to the physical sensations in your body long enough to do 10 push-ups, hold a plank, and then it really helps you to do several things. You're pausing and you're burning that energy off while you're pausing. And it just helps, it helps to not lose your shit on somebody, honestly. Um, even even if you're the type of person who gets angry and doesn't pop a top, if you're the type of person that gets angry and you hold it all in, or you wear it on your face, um, these reactions still need to be addressed. You can still take action, take pauses, pause, even though you think you're hiding it from the person you're standing in front of, you're probably not. And just looking nasty can damage relationships too. It's harder to hide anger. So instead, like, take action, take self-centered action, and and hopefully we can save relationships one relationship at a time. So thank you for joining me today on the Recovery Daily podcast. I hope that you found these tips helpful and they empower you to manage your anger constructively. It's really all about the pause and being kind to ourselves in the process. So I will talk to you tomorrow.